Ok, io partirei. Caterina, tu hai detto che non vuoi E qui è pronto il video? Adesso bisogna farlo partire. Io dico due parole.
Poi scegli.
Sì, d'accordo, ma subito
E poi
dopo.
facciamo partire.
Esatto. Sì, ma nel senso che... Sì. Ok, thank you very much for coming. We are in New York, but today we are also in Sardinia, which is a wonderful place, not only for the coast, but as we discover for the interior. It's a discovery that involves archaeology, food, way of living, or manufacturing, many different things. And it's a welcome for Massimo D'Agostino, Major of Bonorva, for Caterina Orlando, Italian National Tourist Board, for Valerio Rani, who is the soul of today's event, curator and artistic director of Musa Madre Festival in Rebeccu, Jeff Biggers, who wrote a wonderful book about Sardinia, Nancy Juan, food blogger, Alessandro Medis, the architect, and Leide Porcu, psychoanalyst, coach, and anthropologist. So I'm very happy to leave the podium now to the major of Bonorva, Massimo D'Agostino. Please welcome Massimo D'Agostino.
Buonasera a tutti, io sono Massimo D'Agostino, da 8 anni sindaco del comune di Bonorva, che è un piccolo paesino della Sardegna, isola di Sardegna. Sono particolarmente felice di essere qui e in primis ringrazio chi ci ospita, quindi l'Istituto Italiano di Cultura, per la calorosa accoglienza e ringrazio anche chi ha permesso che oggi noi amministratori del comune di Bonorva possiamo essere qui, ovvero innanzitutto il governatore della regione Sardegna, quindi la regione Sardegna, chi ha lavorato al progetto nella regione Sardegna, poi naturalmente i nostri partner delle associazioni enti locali con le quali abbiamo diversi, scusami, mi sono dimenticato, con i quali abbiamo diversi progetti. Okay.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Massimo D'Agostino. I'm the mayor of the city of Bonorva, which is a little village in Sardinia. I've been mayor for 8 years of this village, which is a little one which we have in our island. And I'm very proud and glad to be here. So I want to thank everybody who worked at this project. But first of all, for the warm welcoming, I want to thank the institution. So thank you to the Italian Cultural Institute. And I want to thank also the region of Sardinia, together with all the people who worked at this project. So particularly the governor of Sardinia, who made all this project possible.
Ok, grazie. E quindi abbiamo detto Regione Sardegna, l'associazione enti locali, ma naturalmente il ringraziamento più grande a Valeria Orani, che instancabilmente ci ha condotto fin qui e instancabilmente ha preso in Sardegna le redini dello sviluppo e della promozione di questo nostro piccolo borgo medievale, Rebeccu, che è un'autentica perla, un gioiello nel nostro territorio che noi intendiamo promuovere e sviluppare. Spero davvero che questa sia la strada giusta, credo che lo sarà. Vi ringrazio a tutti e vi auguro una buona serata.
Okay, I continue thanking So I want to continue thanking everybody who worked at this project, particularly Valeria, together with whole team, who made it possible today for us to be here, and who has been working very hard for this project, together with the enhancement of our medieval village, which is very particular, something very unique which we have in our land. And I'm very proud of this project, and I hope this will be the right way to promote our land, and I'm actually sure it is.
Okay.
Okay, we are going to have a panel on cultural arts, eco-revival and sustainable travels. Before that, there is a conversation with a great scholar of Sardinia, who is discovering the pre-Nuragic age of this fascinating island connected to the pre-Mediterranean civilization. So that traveling in Sardinia is in a way also traveling in time, not only in space. And we will give just an excerpt of this conversation with Professor Gian-Matteo Corrias, just some minutes, then the conversation will be available on our YouTube channel and on our website, Stanze Italiane, I mean the entire conversation. Now, just some pieces of this conversation. Buongiorno, siamo oggi a parlare di una Sardegna meno nota rispetto a quella delle spiagge delle coste che tutti conosciamo, una Sardegna affascinante perché ci permette di viaggiare non solo nello spazio ma nel tempo, e viaggiando all'interno della Sardegna magari si scopre che questo interno è collegato al resto del Mediterraneo e quindi il viaggio è ancora più ampio di quello che appare. E la nostra conversazione è con uno studioso importante, il professor Gian-Matteo Corrias, che ha conseguito nel 2002 la laurea in filologia umanistica all'Università di Firenze, poi si è dottorato nel 2006 in civiltà dell'umanesimo e del Rinascimento, dal 2004 al 2005 ha seguito anche il corso di letteratura neolatine all'École pratique des hautes études di Parigi, è autore di numerose pubblicazioni di ambito storico e filologico e ha pubblicato per la casa editrice Arcadia almeno due volumi importanti, Dei e religione dell'antica Roma e Esoterismo e culti misterici nell'antica Roma, e direttore di redazione anche della rivista Montiprama e anche un bel podcast su YouTube, Caffenio. Io non so se poi ci sono altre presenze sui social perché non li frequento moltissimo, ma Caffenio consiglio a tutti di andarlo a vedere perché è ricchissimo, oltre alle conversazioni che io ho ascoltato con Biglino, che sono sempre molto stimolanti e che mi hanno dato addirittura appunto l'idea di parlare, di avviare una conversazione con Matteo Corrias. Buongiorno professore.
Buongiorno professor Finotti, grazie per l'invito.
Ecco, e allora per parlare di questa Sardegna sconosciuta, tutti conoscono oltre alle coste anche i nuraghi, però esiste una storia che parte prima dei nuraghi, che le attraversa, ovviamente continua anche dopo. Io partirei proprio con dei monumenti che così si collocano in tutta la regione. Mi pare che se ne siano scoperti più di 2400, che sono stati proposti recentemente all'UNESCO come sito da valorizzare, da includere nel patrimonio dell'UNESCO, mi pare nel 2021, e che sono le domus deianas. Sono le testimonianze legate diciamo a strutture di necropoli che possono essere molto ampie, di una civiltà pre-nuragica, che sono affascinanti non solo per le caratteristiche costruttive, ma anche perché hanno delle decorazioni, spesso sono dipinte come Sapala Larga a Bonorva, e spesso poi hanno continuato a essere utilizzate nel periodo diciamo successivo anche a quello nuragico. Penso alla tomba del capo di Sant'Andrea Priu, che è stata utilizzata anche in epoca romana e poi in epoca cristiana. In alcune di queste poi, come nell'emiciclo della necropoli di Sasconcas, abbiamo quelli che si chiamano petroglifi, e so che il professor Corrias è particolarmente interessato a tutto ciò che si iscrive all'interno della pietra in una civiltà come quella sarda, che parte diciamo con la pietra, con una grande esperienza megalitica che la pone diciamo sul piano delle grandi culture megalitiche europee, ma che insomma non si ferma solo alla pietra. Prego professore.
Sì, partiamo da una manifestazione monumentale arcaica che è uno degli emblemi della preistoria sarda. Le domus deianas sono delle tipologie sepolcrali che di per sé sono caratteristiche della cosiddetta cultura di Ozieri. Ecco, per dare un'indicazione cronologica, siamo tra il 3500 e il 2900 a.C. Però, come lei giustamente osservava, questi luoghi e queste emergenze monumentali, al tempo stesso, se così possiamo definirle, perché quando si parla dell'arcaico poi la terminologia è sempre un pochino più difficile, hanno avuto una continuità di utilizzo anche funzionale, nel senso proprio dell'utilizzo funerario sepolcrale, che francamente complica decisamente la situazione dal punto di vista degli studi. Ad esempio, per il fatto che è molto difficile ricostruire tutta quella che era la ritualità funeraria legata a questi luoghi. Dal punto di vista morfologico, e questa è la cosa più facile forse da fare anche per approcciare questi monumenti, si tratta di tombe a camera scavate all'interno della roccia. Idealmente, ecco, io direi che la forma tipica o archetipica, forse se vogliamo, è rappresentata dalla bellissima necropoli a Domus Deianas di Summotti a Orroli. Si tratta li chiamano massi erratici, si tratta davvero di grosse pietre all'interno delle quali sono state scavate e quindi ricavate delle camere funerarie che sono appunto le Domus Deianas. Quello che si nota in generale è la tendenza a riprodurre un ambiente che è l'ambiente, diciamo così, domestico, ad esempio la presenza del focolare, la presenza di aperture o finte aperture, ad esempio la presenza della cosiddetta falsa porta, che è sicuramente la tipologia iconografica più rappresentativa della.
Okay, so you have just an idea of the conversation and also of the fact that some of these monuments are even more ancient than Etruscan tombs or even Egyptian, many of Egyptian monuments. So going to Sardinia, and it's fascinating also if you listen to the all contribution or to the all conversation, to see that the name, for instance, of Yahweh is inscribed in some of the statues, some of the monuments. So there is also a circulation of religion content, not only of material, because Sardinia, as you know, was a center for the diffusion of many metals. So this is why I think this is a Sardinia that must be discovered by tourism and also must be rediscovered by Sardinians themselves, because many of these sites are not well indicated, so it's a new way of traveling in Sardinia that I think will be important to promote for the future of the island. And this is, I think, one of the themes of the next section. I would like to call the panel speakers, Valerio Rani, Jeff Biggers, Nancy Juan, Alessandro Melis, Leide Polcu, and I think that I can leave the podium as a master of ceremony to Valeria Orani.
So thank you, everybody, and thank you to this rich crowd audience. Thank you for hospitality, Fabio. Thank you, ENIT. Thank you, Comune di Bonorva. Thank you, Associazione Enti Locali. And first of all, thank you, Regione Sardegna. I don't see Roberto anymore, but Roberto. And thank you, Bonorva. Thank you, Bonorva, as a people of Bonorva, as a population of Sardinia. And thank you also the guests that visited Rebeccu, this little tiny village, inhabited, very, not very insulated, but like a pearl in the middle. There is a part of this municipality of Bonorva saved, protected, and curated as is right to be. So my love for Sardinia comes from my life, of course. I'm Sardinian. I left Sardinia 40 years ago as my work as a curator, producer. I work in theater, I work in movies, I work in the mainstream, I work in the contemporary arts. And then I never missed Sardinia too much as I missed when I arrived in New York. Why? I don't know. I can't answer. But maybe the similarity of something like the islands. Live as island, to be an island, to live in an island. Again, after many years of my turning around in tour and special things, you know. And so this came out as a desire. So I am an immigrant artist. So how these roots comes out in my life unexpectedly. So why? So I started this new project in 2018, and this was a project called Identity. But I didn't like the word identity because it's so many things inside the identity, you know. So I looked at my Sardinian vocabulary, the word identity, and I didn't find it. And so it surprised me a lot because I say, oh, we are so proud of our identity. Why don't we have this word in our vocabulary? And this is, I don't have an answer, but I found a word that was very, very similar for the meanings. And this word was soul. I say, oh, so Amina in Sardinian means anima, there is specular, mirroring, so it's a strange word, and this soul and identity. So from there on, it departs all my studies and my research and my curatorial research. And then arrives COVID, and I was stuck in my house, waiting for a green card. I couldn't go anywhere. And at a certain point arrived the Associazioni Enti Locali call and say, do you wanna be the artistic director of a little festival in a village? I say, oh, you're crazy. I'm stuck in New York. I can't go anywhere. Oh, what a shame. This is an inhabited village, and we think about you. We thought about you. And it was exactly in the same page of my project, Amina. And so I say, bravely, maybe like a little crazy, I say yes. And from there on started a story of love between me and this village that I have to say I didn't visit never in my life before. So I didn't know where I was, Rebeccu, as Sardinian. So I watched from my iPhone, I watched from my computer. My people was there working for me, and I was in my computer at home at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was really moved. And the year after, I finally went there. And I passed by the skyscrapers of New York, of the little tiny houses of Rebeccu. It was a shock, but in a good way. And the first thing I felt is it was a passion and a disappointing that we Sardinians could live with our culture. We could share many things, more than the sea, as Professor Finotti was saying before, more than the beautiful beaches that are always beautiful, and I'm very proud of it. But we have a very long culture. We have a very particularly way of live also in our families, in our heritage. And I was, I have to find a way that it could be a possibility to grow up. Then, long story short, because my panelists are waiting for me, and then I want to express what is my vision of this project, because from now on, as Massimo D'Agostino said, our organization, our festival, Musa Madre, became a way of life for this project. So a way of also to get hospitality for people that are interested to have another kind of tourism that is not the tourist we Sardinian loves very much, the other kind. I have to say, I'm sorry to say with it, but I want to be understood. So we love tourists because we live from tourism, but at the same time we don't feel so in the same page with the tourists who come usually in Sardinia. But at the same time, we have a lot of other things to share, and we have a lot of other people to share with. So I invited here Jeff Biggers, that wrote a beautiful book. He is a journalist, historical, and writer. I invited here Leide Porcu, because Leide is an immigrant as me, but she lives in New York many years. She is a coach, anthropologist, psychologist, many things. And he visited Rebeccu last year, as well Nancy Jean, Nancy Jean that visited for 2 weeks Rebeccu with us, and she's a travel blogger and a food blogger, and she's an amazing person that lived a lot of things. And I have an eye for the future of this project. And the future is with Alessandro Melis, architect, the Dean of the New York Institute of Technology. With him, we are talking about projects, very, very good projects that he will explain. So I leave my podium to Jeff Biggers. Thank you. Thank you.
I may not need a microphone.
Yeah, you need, because we are shooting.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
One, two, is that on? I'll hold it far away if we're shooting. I'm a person of the theater, so I will do something more theatrical. Sardinia is a bad island. It's an ugly island, and even the people are ugly. And even the honey is bitter. Cicero, 2,000 years ago, not Cicero, years ago. Son todos locos, mal unidos y pocos. Castillo in 1600, the Spanish trying to understand who are these sardos. And Balzac comes along trying to make a fortune off the great silver mines he had read about, and he couldn't make any. So he left Sardinia saying, they're all savages. Here is where Africa begins. And then my favorite is D.H. Lawrence, who had this long trip in Sardinia. He spent 6 days there. And he wrote a masterful book called Sea in Sardinia, which really is the birth of travel writing. And he wrote, in Sardinia, there is no race, no history, no offering, nothing. It just makes me want to drop everything. So I only want to show one image. I had a massive slideshow, but you will see enough slides today. And I couldn't believe in 1963, a beautiful year, because I remember it well. I was just in my 30s. And Saul Steinberg, of course, who had these riveting covers, you know, the wonderful How We See the World. He began to create a cover with Sardinia. He wanted to have a conversation between someone in Paris and someone in Sardinia. And so the original drawing actually had a contadina that he was trying to make fun of. He showed the drawing to his dear friend Costantino Nivola, one of the great artists who had come now to New York City and left so much of his public art, who had worked in so many architectural firms to actually create these beautiful bas reliefs and facade. And Nivola said, there is a Sardinia waiting for you to discover. And of course, Saul Steinberg had just seen Vogue magazine, which in 1963 had an amazing article, and it said, there are 2 Sardinias to discover, either the jet set of the Emerald Coast or bandits. That was your choice for Sardinia in 1963. There was something else that Nivola said we had to do. He said, if you want to understand Italy and the rest of Europe, you first need to understand Sardinia. And how is that possible? It's possible if we begin to look in a new way, just like Nivola did, that if we take the map and we move it 90 degrees, imagine, here we have Europe and here we have Africa and something in the middle. If we begin to move that map like this, now with Italy going into Eastern Europe and Turkey there, and then Maghreb and North Africa there, what do we have as the central story is in fact the story of our Mediterranean. That the corridor of exchange, as the great historian Abu Falia said, the most rigorous exchange of civilization was on water, not on land. And if we begin to see that map anew, we begin to see Sardinia, because there in the middle, where we have Italy on one side and the Maghreb and North Africa in the end, you begin to see the civilizations unfold from the Levant and the Middle East, going by Cyprus, going by ancient Egypt, going by Greece. And there in the center of that story is the island of Sardinia. Now there's another map that we have to look at. And this is a map that actually came as an app 10 years ago by a group called NERNet, who said, we often show Sardinia as this beautiful floating island of green. We all love the beaches of Sardinia. In fact, The Little Mermaid that came out last year was filmed there. But we forget two things. One, most importantly, is those beaches were absolutely conserved because they passed a law in 2006 that forbade any construction within 3 kilometers of the beach. An incredible decision by the Sardinian people, not simply to preserve their beaches, but to preserve their natural resources and their villages and communities, which they paid for dearly economically. But the second map was, instead of seeing this green island, that we actually look at it through history. And the NERNet map had dots on it, thousands of dots, tens of thousands of dots, all which represented it, as the director showed us in his initial conversation, ancient sites that there is nowhere in Europe that is comparable if we begin to look at the Neolithic and Bronze Age monuments in Sardinia. 10,000 stone towers called nuraghi, often going up 150 feet tall, 3 stories. Not simply ruins, but actual castles from the Bronze Age of 4,000 years ago. That if you look at this map now with all these dots, it's almost as if you're flying into JFK. Imagine these dots were illuminated. It'd be like flying into JFK at night and seeing this incredibly densely populated island from the Bronze Age. And we begin to go back to history. We begin to listen to what Nivola told us, that we can't understand Italy and Europe until we understand this phenomenon of history in Sardinia. That as the cradle of the Bronze Age, the Sardinian artifacts are found throughout. That in fact, in the Levant of King Solomon, you find the silver and the lead coming from Sardinia. That if you go to Cyprus, the great trading partner, still today you find ceramic pots that carried oil and wine. In fact, the oldest winemaking coming from Sardinia. That if you go to ancient Greece, you begin to find all sorts of metals and ceramics and ideas that have been traded. That if you go to ancient Egypt, the hieroglyphics show from 3,000 years ago the Shardana sea people that had served as mercenaries and warriors within the Mediterranean. That if you go to Iberia in Spain, you begin to find even more artifacts from 3,000 years ago, and it continues out to the Atlantic Ocean, all the way to Cornwall, till we arrive in Denmark, where they found bronze helmets and bronze swords 2,000 years before the Vikings. It's not that Sardinia simply traded goods, they traded ideas. They became incredible pioneers of architecture that Socrates talked about. They became incredible thinkers that began to transport and export their ideas throughout the Mediterranean. You know, think about 1921 with D.H. Lawrence. D.H. Lawrence said, there's no history, no offering. And think about what was happening in 1921. I'm sure you all remember, you were there in those days, right? In 1921 in Sardinia, Antonio Gramsci, this young journalist, had founded a newspaper in Torino. And in 1921, along with another Sardinian, was founding the Communist Party of Italy. In 1921, Emilio Lussu, the great war hero of World War I, who wrote a novel the New York Times said was more important than anything Hemingway could ever write, founded the first political party for autonomy in all of Europe. And of course, we know Lussu would go on to be one of the leaders of the resistance and help write the Italian Constitution. In 1921, Edina Altara was changing the art world of Milan and the fashion industry. She was kind of like Frida Kahlo, 10 years before Frida Kahlo began her artistic innovations. In 1921, Francesco Ciusa was winning all sorts of accolades in Venezia at the Biennale for his sculpture and artwork. In 1921, as Gramsci wrote, you had the coal miners leading strikes in Iglesias that soon would affect all of Italy. In fact, the first general strike in Italy was based on a coal mining strike and massacre in Sardinia. And in 1921, you had a rivista, a magazine come out called Giornale Sardo, that actually brought together the art and the poetry and the music of an island that was one of the most popular editions in all of Rome. 30 years later, when this magazine came out, the great psychiatrist, somebody's calling from Sardinia here. All right, somebody fess up. Who has it? Okay. We're good? 30 years later, the great psychiatrist, Nereida Rudas, she founded the first Institute of Psychiatry in Rome. She was from Sardinia, and she decided to go back and try to understand her island. So she was going to do a psychoanalysis of Sardinia. Can you imagine someone coming and doing a psychoanalysis of New York today? And she was convinced that this island was insular, isolated, just as the definition says. If you're an island, you are isolated, right? You're an insula, you're insular. But she was shocked by the creativity. And Rudas, this patrician psychiatrist, said, how is it possible that we have so many creative people on this island? And of course, she was referring to Gramsci and Lusu and Daleda, who'd win the Nobel laureate. But she was referring to Sata, Sebastiano Sata, the great poet, and Salvatore Sata, who would write a novel that Susan Sontag would say is the greatest novel of the 20th century. She talked about how is it possible that we bring these artists together and shape who we are in Italy. And that's where I will bring it back to Rebeccu and finish here. In 1979, the great artist Maria Lai was invited back to her village in Ulusai, a little village in the mountains of Ogliastra, in the southeast part of Sardinia. And they asked her to create a memorial to war veterans, those who had died. And Maria Lai said no. She was conflicted with her village because her brother had been murdered, and she never felt resolved with what had happened to her family. She said, if you're going to create a memorial, you should do it to the living. That if you're going to make history, you create history. And so in 1981, the villagers invited her back, just like in Rebeccu. And so Maria Lai got 16 miles of blue ribbon, and she wrapped her entire village, from balconies to churches, from doorsteps up to the shops, all the way up to the craggy ridge of her village. And the idea of wrapping the town in 16 miles of blue ribbon was to unite a divided town that were torn in feuds. The idea that even if we may not agree, that we are all in it together. And it's through this work of art that brought the international media, this work of performance art, that actually catapulted this village into the forefront of performance arts throughout Europe. And Maria Lai, this year, again, is getting her due at the Biennale in Venice. Rebeccu, which you will see, is part of creating history. It's part of making history. It's taking a medieval village, as the mayor talked about, and not simply filling it with houses for tourism. It's about restoring by restoring. That if we're going to restore the buildings, we have to restore our history. This beautiful word they've created in Italian, ristorificazione. That how do we restore history that has been lost? And that is what Rebeccu is doing, is inviting artists from around the world, including myself, Assistranzu, with other people, to come in and recapture that history. Last year I was in Rebeccu. I went to this fountain that was amazing, dating back 3,000 years, a Nuragic fountain. And there by the fountain was a group of young Sardinians who had come back, who actually had grandparents and they had lived in other countries. A filmmaker from Paris, a writer from Bologna, and a singer who was living in the north of Italy. And there they were on this 3,000-year-old ancient fountain, creating an artwork to retell a new story, not just of Sardinia, but how Sardinia had changed the rest of the world. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It's now, after this beautiful performance, it's going to be a little bit more subdued. Not a lot of images, only one, and it's not even from Sardinia. I'm here just to talk about my experience of Rebeccu. I was there last year of Ischelio. Ischelio is a specific program that Valeria created for the immigrants and for the people from Italian Sardinian heritage, coming for a few days in this beautiful village, and together we create something artistic, but it's also a very profound personal experience. So Ischelio means recalling. I don't know if it's the exact word in English, but it's the call that we do to call the birds back to us. Whatever. So it's connected with ecotourism and with heritage tourism, but this project is really out of the box. So a quick show of hands. Who is first generation here? Chi è prima generazione? Chi vive? No. Second generation? Nobody? Okay, few seconds. No new immigrants. There is no new immigrants. There is. Okay. Okay, new immigrants, second generations, children of immigrants. Okay, okay. So I think that even if, I hope I'm gonna say something that's gonna speak to everybody at the beginning of this talk, also because if you're not the immigrants, maybe you have relatives who are. And what I'm saying now is general. So I'm about to show a picture that is not from Sardinia, but you know, many of these things are based in dreams, in what we make of things. So this picture, Bernard Prossu, is a picture that I took from a class I took here in New York with narrative medicine. And it wasn't, we weren't talking about immigration, but in the end, this picture became a symbol of immigration. And here is the picture, oops. How can I see the bottom of the picture? Here. Can you come 1 second? You see only, you don't see the person here. Here we go. We don't see the whole picture, but we can only see this piece here. Anyway, there is a mountain. No. Here, you can make it small here, probably. Yeah, okay. So, what comes to mind to you about this picture? I'm gonna just take half a second of answer, but if someone can tell me what do you see in this picture? And you can also speak in Italian. Che cosa vedete in questa foto? It's what? Yes. Anyone else want to say something? She's coming home. Okay. Any other? So let's keep it this way because we don't have a lot of time. But the idea is that we can use an image, even if it's not about Sardinia, to project our own hopes, dreams, ideas, and history, and create a whole story and know each other better. So this is a kind of a symbol of what Rebeccu is or can be. The idea that we come to a place that is a third place, is not our country of origin. I mean, it's our island of origin, but it's not our place of origin, it's a third place. And in this place, we create together something artistic, and also personally, we grow and kind of integrate different parts of our immigrant identity. That's what I saw when, it's also interesting in this picture, you see, is a panorama, but it's vertical. There are so many interesting things that if you have time to look at it, you can make a whole story. You can make your own whole story. So now I'm going to try to make this big again. Let's see if I can do it. Can you help me to make it big? Okay, perfetto. Okay, so Mal di Sardegna, the pain about wanting to be in Sardinia, wanting to come back, it's a pain that we call it this way, and also tourists call it this way. In reality, in my work with the immigrant patients, I see it with all the Italian people, especially with the Italian people. And a curiosity that maybe many of the Italian people maybe know is that Gramsci, when he died, he had a ticket in his pocket, the ferry ticket, and he also had booked a booking for a room in Salto Lussurgio. So he also wanted to die home, probably, or maybe he didn't know he was dying, but anyway, many immigrants want to die home. Now, this is not turning anymore, but I'm gonna try to do it from here. No. Così? Okay, so many of us immigrants, in our dreams, in our daydreams, or in Google Maps, we go and visit our places, the places we left behind. We create a shrine of artifacts and food, and we say, oh my God, what is this? And we search communities, sooner or later. Maybe we don't want to see the Italian community, but sooner or later we want to be with the Italian community. And these are a list of various communities that are important, including the church that is here, and of course the Italian Cultural Institute. Okay, let's see. Did I skip one? No. So, and common feelings are always feeling like losing something, because if you are here, it's like FOMO, but much more. If you are here, maybe you are missing something there. If you are there, maybe you are missing something here. People die, grow old, friends change, you lose a lot of family important events, etc. Now, oh my God. Okay, you can move for me. Thank you. Sorry, normally I do it by hand, but with my computer. And it's not really nostalgia in the negative sense, because even very successful immigrants have these feelings. And Akhtar, a psychoanalyst of Indian origin, talks that immigration is a mourning that takes a lifetime. And even if we forget at some point, as Valeria said, the need to come back arise. And of course, this is not like a sad talk, because there is so much positive, linguistically, professionally, socially. There are all beautiful aspects. We immigrants have two different lives, and also sometimes feel so much younger because of that. But there is this tendency that I hear from a lot of people, unless they have like a big established family here, that they really want to come home. And not only the Italians, in this case, this example that I put there, it's from a beautiful book, Undocumented Americans, that really talk about this, how these Latino people really want to come back. At least the family collect the money to bring the body back if it cannot be done before. And these are a part of the type of feelings that we can have, neither here nor there, both in both places, marginal in one or both places, attempting to forget to fit in, reinforcing on highlighting one's own origin, feeling shame, especially for second generation sometimes, for not knowing enough the language and culture, and then not being recognized in Italy as Italians, or by the new Italian immigrants. And in the best case scenario, feeling peace, richer, and being able to switch and integrate. So why I'm saying this, I anticipated a little bit before, because Rebeccu helps talking about these things. It's like a group of people with a very regimented schedule, but at the same time also there is a ritualistic aspect to it that makes it feel like a rite of passage, because in a sense we cannot move from there. There are so many things to do, so much art overload, all the meetings that we have with the group, with Francesca Ligi, the woman who organizes the workshop, that really, we are really stuck in this place for the whole time. So it's really a kind of, so when you go to a meditation retreat, it's similar, but here we can talk. So what's special about Rebeccu is this idea that is a third, as I was saying before. It's not really the place of origin. And also important that it is not really empty. So I don't know if you've been to Mont Saint-Michel. I was there in France before they opened, and the village is completely empty. They come like they are going to Disneyland and open shops. So it's really fake. Instead, this place has a little bit of inhabitants, and the community that is hosting us is really present and calm. So this is important because there is a sense of history, nature, legend, and this cultural overload that I was talking about, and the fact that the community is a hybrid community. People so different that they wouldn't have met otherwise or really become friends, because we are very different, also in age. And the fact that we come and go without leaving a trace, so good for the environment. So the psychoanalyst Blomberg talks of the space in between, the space between the dyad of analysts and therapists, where the healing occurs, which is this third space. And I was thinking, could we consider also Ischelio as that, as a third place where we transform and create our journey? Let's go, because we have no time. Another example coming from psychoanalysis is this beautiful article called Neverland by Lama Kauri. And in this article, she says that for the immigrant creates a Neverland, and you can read the quote yourself, and the work of the therapy creates a Neverland that is healing. Neverland from Peter Pan. So, the interesting thing about this author is that she didn't miss her Jordan, and she lived many years, 20 years in the US. But while working with this patient, with these young patients in Brooklyn, she rediscovered her missing her hometown. And so it's through her patients that she was able to have these experiences of a third place where she could feel and reconnect, and also the kids could reconnect. So there is this symbolic, transformative, co-creative space that I'm making a comparison with. So another idea is we take so much from this experience, but what are we giving back? So as Kennedy said, and Kennedy, quoting Kennedy, just what exactly said, don't ask what Rebeccu can do to you, ask what you can do for Rebeccu. And of course I'm joking, but so the idea is, how can we, how can we give back? And I was thinking, and of course, practices of technology, as Valeria also mentioned, is not only fine arts, but it can also be something else that we give to the community. And it's very important to partner with the community. How much time I have? I'm done? Okay, so that's it. The idea is that we need to partner with the community as equal and learn from each other. And also, the last word is that I am part of Com.It.Es, and this program is also under the patrocinio gratuito of Com.It.Es, and our president is there, and I wanted to give a shout out to him. And the last shout out is for another beautiful ecotourism place that is in Sardinia, and is the last slide, and is in Iglesias, the Parco Giomirario and the Camino di Santa Barbara. So when you go to Rebeccu, on your way down, go to Iglesias. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I would like to start with this statement. An ancient present, so ancient as to be future. This is not by me, this is by Aldo Rossi. He's a very important Italian architect. The GOAT, we say in New York, the GOAT of architecture. And he's one of the many architects that has been particularly fascinated by this idea of archetypal architecture that you can find only in Sardinia. When I'm reflecting on this, I would like, I think that I'm changing a little bit what I'm going to say, because Jeff was making me reflecting many things about what Sardinia, and I think that the biggest thing, and I thank especially Valeria for giving me this opportunity to discuss about Rebeccu, is because Rebeccu is a paradigm what Sardinia is. There is a beauty that requires an effort. So Sardinia is very complex. If you want to engage with Sardinia, you need to put an effort. Otherwise, as H.P. Lawrence does, you don't see the things. It's something special, and it's something that requires a commitment. It's not something that is different. Not only Sardinia is like this. Very recently, I was complaining against a colleague that was studying public space in New York, and all the symposium was about what is the paradigm of public space in New York. New York is a complex city. You cannot talk about public space and make all the symposium about what is happening in Hudson Yard, what is happening in Lower Manhattan. So if you want to engage with New York, you have to understand that everybody, when you come here, Lower Manhattan is not New York. It's just 1.6 million people, but more than 3 million people live in Brooklyn. So this idea that when you come in a place, you need to make an effort if you want to go beyond this complexity, I think that applies very well to Sardinia. And this is how we decide to make, to consider for this reason, especially in times of environmental changes and global crisis, the solution is not simple. We need to put an effort. 2030, which is the deadline of the United Nations agenda, is there 6 years from now, and we are not doing anything to make the planet better. So where we have to start from? We have to start from complex places that can give us information about the fact that progress is not a linear line, it's something that changes in the time. And again, this is another reflection that can maybe come from what we have heard from Correas. The point is that Sardinia is making you think, reflecting of common places, how to engage with them, because Sardinia has a very rich historical and, let's say, architectural architecture. It's an architecture phenomenon very deep and long in terms of history, but start 3000 before Christ and become, let's say, the apex of this culture stays for 2000 years before what we call in the majority of the book, history of architecture. So it's something that we need to understand. We need to understand that history is not what happened in the last 200 years, but it's something that comes many years before this. And Rebeccu is a place that physically, of course, it's medieval, mostly medieval place, but with a lot of influences, but stays in a very archetypical environment. So what we want to do is exactly what the United Nations is asking to do. So to start thinking that creativity can become an instrument to challenge the status quo. Status quo, we know, is not an option. What shall we do? We use creativity or performative art to transform places in performative places. And this is one of the projects that we intend to develop with my university, New York Institute of Technology, and bring the most diverse group of students from all over the world. I'm very proud to tell you that New York Tech is indicated as the most diverse American university in this place. And we want them to understand the quality of the place and understand how we can use this place as a lab to understand what could be the right strategies to use creativity as an instrument to overcome the global crisis. So here, as you can see, we have two examples of Rebeccu as it is today, a precedent, which is, by the way, has been developed with artificial intelligence to, let's say, develop potential models that represent what Rebeccu can become. So public spaces can become theaters, but not only because the action takes place there, but also because the village per se become a theater. Another possibility that we are evaluating with the students is to explore glamping. The idea of having units that can be inhabited, like a form of camping that also allow to a more, if you want, comfortable quality of camping. Here you see that the quality of the environment of Rebeccu are perfect for this possibility. And one of the things that is already on the table and that we will work immediately starting from September, and we hope that this could be operative starting from next spring, is the Orto Teatro, the Orchard Theater. That this is an idea that I believe comes from Valeria, that the students are very happy to consider as what we call live projects. Students that can develop projects that become real, effective in a short frame of time. And this is probably the most emerging part of the project, which is the most research-oriented, and also the one that responds in the best way to the initial statement, so that if you watch to the past, you can think of a better future, especially if the present that we have built is not necessarily the best present, the best possible present. Here, the idea of the glamping is mixed up with the possibility to really develop intrinsically ecological architecture. And this is also related to the spirit or the soul, the amina of Sardinia, because if we watch back and we think about the Nuragic culture, or coming back until the Domus de Llanas, the thing that is more relevant is that this is an architecture which is done with the material that come from the site, and they don't produce any waste. They are intrinsically ecological per se, and basically they break a taxonomy, a paradigm that we think we cannot change today, which is the fact that there is nature on one side and artificial on the other side. Sardinia, when I say complex, is also this, is a place where all our paradigms, all our taxonomies, what is artificial and what is natural, goes in a completely different direction. By the way, it's more responding what we know evolutionary biology is telling us about the progress. But this is where we want to go. So can you imagine the possibility to use advanced technology like 3D printing, robotic arms, to build pods structure that in a way are realized using only the material which is on site. For instance, clay, or what we call in Sardinia terra cruda. Here you see an example of how this evolution, as this project can be developed. And highly important, if you watch this project and you think of the material that we are imagining, I understand that this is in a way radical architecture, but in a way, if I have to speak as an architect, I see in this possibility something very futuristic, but with the soul which is very close to traditional architecture. I really see the giant graves here. I really see the Domus de Llanas. I see many elements of traditional architecture, because they are done with the same logic, completely different technology, but with the same design logic. Here I just want to, because I don't want to take much, I would like to speak so much, you have no idea how much, but I'm sure that you need to rest a little bit. So I just want to finish with one aspect, that it's true. We have sometimes as a Sardinian I've complained when I've seen the first time I went in Little Italy, I see that most of the seniors, they didn't have Sardinia in the Sardinian image, and it's difficult when I speak. Now it's getting different, but I remember that when I was a kid, it was very difficult to say I come from Sardinia, because it was the most mysterious place. I went in peace in a way when I moved to New Zealand, and I discovered my brothers, my sisters there. They come from a land which is like my land. Nobody recognizes them. Everybody's telling, you are from Australia, like we say, oh, you are from Sicily. From time to time this happens. Or the fact that they tell, we are very proud, we are the only land with the highest number of sheep than human. And I said, this is not true. Well, I have to tell you these things. When I invited my colleague in Sardinia, and this is the only difference between Sardinia and New Zealand. I invited my colleague, and they were watching our sheep, they said, are these sheep? They seem so, so thin, because they have sheep that are very massive. This is true, but it's also true the opposite. We don't know how much Sardinia has been influential for many people in different periods of our history. This is one example, and I'm very fond of this example because this is part of my, if you want, the school of architecture I belong to, which is the school of the Austrian radical. And I was totally unaware of this. My advice, I will come back to this for 1 second, but my advice is that you go, when you have time, or when you go back here, 10 blocks in that direction, and you will find this building, which is the Austrian Cultural Forum. I don't know if you are familiar with this building. It's a magnificent high-rise, one of the best high-rise built in New York, by the way, architecturally. This has been done by Raimund Abraham, very important Austrian architect, but also considered New Yorker architect, one of the most important educators at the Cooper Union. And together with Lebbeus Woods and Diane Lewis and other important professors at the Cooper Union, so this is a new thing, I guess also for my friend from Sardinia, they consider the water temple here as the archetype of architecture. Everything should come from here, and this is like also, we are talking about esotericism. Hans Hollein, Wolf Prix, the most important architect of that generation, they used to go to this place. By the way, this is the most fake of the water temple, but doesn't matter. For them, the important is to recognize the archetype, go there and think, when we watch this, we see the future of architecture. I know that it's not very common, not well known, but I'm particularly proud of this. And this is, just to conclude, this is the project done by the square, Pertini Square, by Aldo Rossi, that, as you can see, is clearly influenced by the Holy Temple or Holy Well. It depends on how we want to call. However, coming back, if you go back and see this high-rise, the Austrian Cultural Forum, what you don't know but you understand now is that this facade, like all the buildings that by Raimund Abrams, is designed to represent the water temple, or let's say it's using the archetype of the water temple as a main element that represents what is archetype in architecture. Thank you.
Good evening. Buonasera a tutti. I just think what a great pleasure to be here today to share with you my experience about visiting Rebeccu last year. I know everybody have talked about every different aspect of a Rebeccu, from history, from architecture, from culture. I'm just talking from a perspective of a traveler. Before I visited Sardinia, I have already traveled to 17 out of 20 regions of Italy. So Sardinia was my 18th region. And I know we were going to an abandoned village. You really didn't know what to expect. To my surprise, the village was incredibly beautiful. And, you know, it's a certain layer of a piece. And you see the stone path and everything, it brings you a totally different feeling. It's in the center of the island. Different than most time we talk about Sardinia, all the advertising you see is on the beach, is on the water, and but here you truly feel the culture. When we entered Musa Madra's site, I was very surprised to see it was very well set up, very artistically set up, and the bookstores. And also outside as a stage, we have you know, all those hate piles setting together. It seems very, very romantic. The chairs on the wall, it's just very, you know, so well done. You're like, how sophisticated in this out of nowhere little village. You just didn't expect that. What really caught my eye, caught my attention is all those baskets, is antique hand-woven baskets hanging on the wall, mounted with all this beautiful fabric. For myself, being in the fashion business for more than 20 years, so I'm naturally just attracted to looking at the fabrics and looking at how well they were putting together. It's, you know, I can just see how much love people have for all these elements they have in Sardinia. As a travel, I love food, of course. I love Italy because I love food, and I'm continuously going through every region to study their specialty and their food. So my friend arranged every opportunity for me to learn what local have to offer. And the one thing we learned is a fragola. It's so incredible. Everybody have this big clay pots, and you drip little water and drip little flowers, and you roll it. You roll it. The sound of those clay pots and the feel of it on your palm, I can still feel that. And then beautiful pasta come out. So it's really surprising. I've never seen anything like that before. And another really rare, I don't think anywhere else in Italy has this. And not everywhere in Sardinia. It's on a small region of Sardinia. This pasta called larghitas. And it's a girl's earring. That's how tiny, how refined it is. So I took a cooking class, and I went home. I couldn't help it. I was just trying to roll it out until I really figured out how to make it to the standard, just like, you know, they had award-winning gold standard, those pasta they sell in the capital of Sardinia. This one, the unique pasta, I think probably people know this better. It's called the culajunas. It's a sort of like a dumpling. And I think many Sardinian restaurants serve, even in other part of Italy or in US. But I grew up in China. We also have dumplings in this shape. So when I posted this on the Chinese, you know, on my WeChat, there's so many people comment on it. It's like, oh, I remember my grandmother used to make those. I remember my mom used to make those. You know, the food just brings such a sweet spot, you know, to everyone's heart, to everyone's feeling. As another unique chichineidos, when the day I was told we were going to learn how to make a chichineidos, I Googled it. What the chichineidos in English? They explained, translate to say it's a half little shell. And I thought, oh, how boring that is. I've seen that machine making that in New York. But until I get to the village, then I understood the chichineidos in each village has its own meaning, has its own shape. So in this is a 120 years old piece of tool. And the people making that pasta, less than 1 inch, you have to have 2 twists to it. So it just, you know, it was just incredibly beautiful. We watched the old lady making that. We just thought, oh, what incredible. Imagine all the women getting together. You know, that's the old life. That's where they have. And they still maintain that today. It's so rare. But what really, I think, it was a part of it, really beautiful in Rebeccu. Was so peaceful. I love to take the morning walk, get up early to see the sunrise or the sunset. One day I had all these sheepdog fighting with me. They were thinking I got too close to their sheep. But I think the sheep are just as curious as I am. They keep coming to me and looking at me. And I just thought, so I snapped a picture of them. I just thought they were so sweet and so lovely. And this picture, actually, I took one in the morning, and they were actually some activity already went on in the church. The festival have bring to us, I thought, it's hard to describe. We have this beautiful dance in front of the stone walls building 1300s, and then this picture, the last picture, actually was a piano playing the music on a natural setting. You have a sunset, it's a golden, it entirely makes the field the totally golden and beautiful land. Then you have a piano playing, you have a singing, and on the other side behind the lady, actually their moon was hanging there. There's truly no words to explain it. I think the magic is really, that's the only way to say it. You sit there, you can feel it. The other unforgettable moment, one the beautiful evening, we were together in the village, 40, 50 of us, like in the long table. The local people served us with the lamps and their famous bread. It's very interesting for me because I have seen in the Silk Road region of China, they also eat this way. They serve the lamb with soup and with bread. And I just think what a unique connection that is. But the most beautiful thing is, and the memory is the voice, is the singing of the people. And so I hope you all get a chance to enjoy it.
So we have done a little journey. There is my vision of this project, thanks to all of you. And I want to finish with a video of that day of Spuntino with the people of Bonorva and with the delicious ziki bread. There is a particular bread just from Bonorva, so you can't find anywhere in Sardinia but in Bonorva. So and I wanna show you a video of that evening, and I took that video. She took the video, of course, and close your eyes and listen.
Casa domo mia, avanzate non ti vedas. Rundinasa domo, rundinasa domo, rundinasa domo, rundinasa domo. Disizzosa l'orrare a su nido abbandonato, azzisato lo passato dell'almera immenso mare, azzi duca a riposare a su nido ostrugaro, non vi dove un invano. non ti meda, Sardegna da siena, rundina sa domo mia. Avanzare non ti velas, rundina sa domo, rundina sa domo, rundina sa domo, rundina sa domo. Disizzosa velorare, assuni lu abbandonato, azzizzato l'uvasato, della mera impensumata, azzinduca riposare, assuni lu ostrugare, doppi dove l'unimas, passa ostra bramosia, rundina sa domo mia, domo mia, domo mia. Aperto sape sul giusto, su un balcone se gianna, in salomo cantelmanna, che tu rocca ne trambusto, mirate giuro che scusto, e a pezzi il nascimento, e o gioco truchidento. Posa sempre compagnia, rundina sa domo mia. Rite tu capita tesu, che olare dai nove, rite una mica ore, volgiamo e non so inteso, quindi te posa pofeso, promusare malutratto, chi te dorto scalevatto, posa pomare. Mare Valdia, domo mia, domo mia, domo mia. Rundina sa domo, rundina sa domo, rundina sa domo, rundina sa domo. Forsi posa poi merano in seguito metafizos, o ischire so inchizos, tu careva dorra sana, o si affaghe tu samano, cantu dunso joazibino, cacchi goro struingurrina. Mi capeo in pedaia, rundina sa domo mia. Rite tu capita tesu, che olate dai nove, rite
welcome to Sardinia soon.